Aloha and welcome to another episode of the Ohana Packers Edition podcast, the podcast where I am joined by Tyler Schoon of Guilty as Charged for this week's preview edition of the Los Angeles Chargers as they come to Lambeau to play the Packers. Tyler, just want to give you a warm welcome to the show, and I want to say thank you so much for joining us for the crossover edition. Tyler is with Guilty as Charged. He, Steven, and Alex do a bunch of content for regarding the Chargers. They've started to do a crossover venture with the Chargers themselves. I believe that's where I have to make sure I keep this one short and sweet today. Make sure he's not late for that. But Tyler, just wanted to say thank you, and honestly, just take these next few minutes to just give a little spiel on everything you guys do over at Guilty as Charged.
Sure. Well, first off, thank you for having me on, and thank you for, I think 2 years ago, jumping on our podcast because I wanted to know who are the Packers the Chargers are probably going to sign. You spent, I think, a good hour talking about everyone except for J.K. Scott, who's the guy they ended up taking anyway, which is fine. You know, you have time for, corners and tackles. Punters, that's typically not high on the list of free agent priorities, but that's who they went with. So yeah, I am Tyler. Steven and I are co-hosts of the Guilty as Charged podcast. Started that back in 2020. I think everyone had their COVID thing that they did. For us, it was starting the podcast, and it's been great. And along the way, we've been joined by Alex and Arjun, and then added another Alex and a Maddie and Jameson, and so many people that have done or continue to do great work for us, with us, really. We are nothing without those people. So they're fantastic. Our channel generally drops content every single day. Steven and I handle more of the main flagship show. Alex, Jameson, Arjun, etc. do some extra stuff that allows like different perspectives. Arjun with analytics, for example. He's someone we met up with in 2021. Lo and behold, he gets an internship with the New York Jets, and is pretty cool for him as well. So yeah, we do content. I don't know if you'll like it. I don't know if you'll ever listen to it. I can't say I listen to a whole lot of Packers content myself, but if you'd like to listen to some Chargers content this week, we'll be at it.
No, they're a great listen. Obviously centered on the Chargers, but a lot of just good football talk. You guys have a lot of good insight. My honest, and just going into, Tyler and I were kind of joking about this earlier before the show, but Chargers Packers kind of runs a little deeper for me because Chargers honestly were my AFC team. Even though I'm a Packers fan first, Chargers are my AFC team because there were no loyalties other than they're like one of the closest teams to Hawaii. So always, and then of course I feel like probably I'm part of the curse, so maybe I should cheer for a different team. And then I'm married into that because my wife is from Oceanside, San Diego. So a lot of loyalty to that. And this is wife and I have been dating, we've been together since 2011. So this has been a fun. We make fun out of it, and we always we know that we're always in good spirits because it's always the person who wins who's more awkward about it than the other.
Oh yeah.
It's we're that kind of fan where it's like, oh, like honestly, the last time we played you guys in 2021 or whatever, or no, 2019, that was the one where we came to LA and we just stunk it up. And I remember I could feel her eyes on my side. Eating lunch as we're watching the game, and I'm like, I didn't even look at her. I was like, I know what you're doing. Like, you should celebrate because we're playing like ass today.
I remember that game, man. That was I think Mike Williams had his first 100-yard game that game. That was Shane Steichen's first game as the offensive coordinator, which, I mean, and we're like, whoa, what is this offense? And then he's somewhere else now, and I wish him the best. But yeah, it's strange. My dad's a Raiders fan. I'm a Chargers fan. My mom has, rooted for both, but she's now more of a Chargers fan. And so the three of us will go to a game, and it's her in between me and my dad. Not because we'll be fighting or whatever, because she has to console him or me, but typically him these days. Thankfully, she's a therapist, so she's like, so she'll like, oh, I'm so sorry, honey. Yeah, Chargers. And then, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, oh, they'll get them next time. Yeah, Chargers. So anyway, I love the family stuff. I love the crossover stuff. It makes it more fun. But like you said, I completely get the awkwardness part because driving home, it's like, well, Dad, Aiden O'Connell look really good, man. The future looks brighter. So, you're trying to make them feel better. Yeah. But it's like, yay, we won, but you feel bad. Like you only get 90% of the win, I feel like.
Yeah. And it's a team that neither of us hates. So it's like, Like,
Yeah,
it's always
sure.
it always
Right.
ends with the other one of us going, celebrate it, enjoy it. One of us needs to enjoy it.
Yeah, exactly. I love it.
Well then, but no, like I said, I'm gonna say that a bunch, but just thank you for joining us. Like I said, for squeezing us into your schedule, your recording schedule today. Really appreciate you coming on. And we're going to go to the number one topic of conversation. I'm going to use this finger, not the correct finger, because that would be crude. But how has Justin Herbert's middle finger been looking for you guys? Because I know as of a couple weeks ago, he was still wearing all but an entire hand cast on just the one finger. But how has he been looking the last few weeks, and how has that progression gone for him over
So
time?
my understanding is based on what they had Herbert had said, like this will be the week where he does not have to wear a brace. It should be healed by now. Now he might, it could be just a comfort thing. It still could be in pain, of course. So he might wear something, but it's progressed from they tried different things. Then the glove would rip off his finger and like the cast, the whole thing would just rip off. It was kind of a disaster for him. And you could just tell there were some moments where, like in that Raiders game, I think he had 7 different scrambles, and you could tell he was mobile and moving and stiff arming this guy and juking out Max Crosby, and it was great. And then he got hurt, and that just everything kind of went away. You could tell that was just in his brain a bit, like, hey, I can't do these things anymore. And then when I have to go down, I can't just like bully a person and run him over. I have to make sure I'm like avoiding the fall the wrong way and like putting my hand up. You can see him like extend his fingers like this just so he doesn't touch the ground. So it's definitely been bugging him. But last game against the Lions, it seemed like things were pretty good. Had a good scramble of his own, and it sounds like, much to your luck, you get the fully healthy version of Justin Herbert. So we'll see what he does.
No, it's not like honestly, he would probably play better against us with the finger because that's what life is with Joe Barry as your defensive coordinator.
Yeah,
But
familiar name.
kind of like what you were saying, where it was affecting his ability to scramble, just like you said, because any of us who've dealt with any kind, and none of us necessarily are professional athletes, but
Not quite.
you compensate for it no matter what you do. Kind of, so I can only imagine if you're a quarterback and um, you've got a digit that is not fully healthy, and like you said, is to the point where it's requiring just out of the box thinking in terms of how to protect it to keep you on the field. So I mean, every time, like one of the jokes of the late Rodgers era is that we never saw Rodgers Mahomes, because the first time the two of them were supposed to match up in 2019, Mahomes had that weird knee injury where he like
Mm,
went down on a QB sneak, and
mhm.
then a couple years later when we played the Chiefs, Rodgers had COVID. So regardless of what the situation is, you want to see your team get the chance to play against the best players in the league, and Herbert is one of the most exciting players in the league. Gets unnecessary crap from a lot of national media personnel for things that are totally out of his control. Packers Packers fans should commiserate with Chargers fans over that, because a lot of the issues that Herbert has had in terms of winning games are things that we as Packer fans point to as why Rodgers didn't have more postseason success. So we totally understand where you're coming for. And kind of going into something you mentioned about, the first half of that Raiders game and the season before it, Herbert was much more multifaceted in his ability to, manipulate the ball and do, if he was more comfortable being physical as a runner and things like that. How has his how do you guys see his improved health helping the Chargers run game get back on its feet?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think that you even just saw against the Lions, they ran a speed option where I think Eckler picked up 17 yards. They got to run together, then he pitched it to Eckler, stuff like that. They just are able to do, I think, a bit more. They can also run, I think, especially maybe this week, and it sounds like the Packers are a great way to jumpstart a rushing offense. They'll run more out of under center, and I think there's just only so much he could have done. I think he's done more recently, but one, you can't do play action, and two, you can't just like the shotgun runs just can only get you so far. And we spent so many years of watching Rivers try to run that in Mike McCoy's system with Frank Reich at the time, just like these shotgun runs that weren't working, weren't great for the offense. So now getting back under center, I think that should help them more. I'd have to look at what happened specifically throughout the whole game, but the Chargers rushing attack is just a little bit better last week. And it's tough because they ran like 13 times from the 1 yard line to try to punch it in several different times. And there's defensive pass interference, and they got to do it again. So, that kind of messed up the rushing totals. But if you look at the non 1 yard rushing attempts that they had in terms of the goal line, they averaged 5.45 yards per carry in the second half. So they really started to figure it out. And I think that this is kind of the week where it all starts to gel, because I just feel this intensity and this ferocity with the team right now. They kind of are playing angry. The offenses, the defense, I don't know what they were doing, but the offense, Keenan Allen, Justin Herbert, were kind of playing angry, and they were playing like connected. And this became their thing in the second half, where they went touchdown, 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 touchdown. I mean, it was just, you couldn't stop them, and the offensive line started to feed into it. So I think just all of that's going to start playing into the rushing attack being better, even though it hasn't been great so far. Even if you just look at the numbers from last game, they weren't great, but just focus on what they did in the second half. I think that's what you're going to see leading into this week. So have a blast watching that.
Yeah, like you mentioned, having Herbert fully healthy, it just adds extra dimensions to your run game. Because I remember watching the Monday night game when you guys played Dallas. What was that, like 4 weeks ago at this point or
Something
whatever?
like that, yeah.
And you guys went like 1 for 4 or 5 in the red zone. And I remember watching it and I was like, they just can't run the ball for reasons like you said, because not being able to go under center takes away
Mm-hmm.
so much of your run game and your, like you said, your play action game. Because um so I'm a Michigan alum, Michigan fan, and one of the things that a lot of people talk about is like, oh, they run so many plays from shotgun, and why isn't their run game as good necessarily? And it's kind of, so it's not exactly the same, but it's sort of the same mentality where it's like, okay, so when you run from shotgun, it's a lot of QB reads, and like you have the ability for QB to run. So, depending on who Michigan is playing, the reads are, as they say, off in terms of, okay, we're playing Minnesota. We're not going to have JJ McCarthy run the ball a lot this week.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in Justin Herbert's case, it's like, okay, he's not going to run because he has a broken finger on his hand. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, as a defense, you can look and you can see, okay, we're coming wide, or, we have angles to see the quarterback and the running back. That guy's got the ball. And like there's not mystery and stuff. So yeah, I totally agree with you, Tyler, that Herbert getting healthier, and from the outside looking in, I did hear them say on the broadcast against the Lions that he had a smaller apparatus on his fingers. So like you said, if the team is indicating and Herbert is indicating that he is basically healthy this week, that just adds extra layers to a run game and this goes for any Packers opponent. Any run game needs no help getting going against the Packers. So any extra level of complexity or deception is going to just make that much more of an impact on the Packers run defense. But in terms of the Chargers O-line, I know that, they kind of moved some guys around, due to Rashawn Slater's injury last year. He was out for all intents and purposes all of the 2022 season. So you had a rookie Jamari Sallier starting at left tackle. William or Johnson was starting at right guard, and then because Slater is back, you swap Johnson to left guard and Slater to right guard. And Pickens was retained, but Will Clapp is starting for old Packer friend Corey Linsley, who just want to say we hope that he's doing well, that he's healthy, and that he's able to play again for the Chargers at some point this season. Is he done for the year? Have they confirmed that, or is it like it's too far out to tell kind of thing?
They've not come out and said anything, but I believe Brandon Staley said Corey Linsley is enjoying transitioning into a different role and has taken a bit more of a coaching stance on everything, which really just sounds like he's done for the year, and potentially this could be it for his career.
Right,
And,
right,
and
right,
no matter what, wishing the best for him specifically. I do not care if he plays another down. I'd love to see it, of course, but health comes first. But yeah,
right.
I believe this is actually it for football for Corey
Wow.
Linsley.
Okay, that's a bummer because yeah, he was obviously a stalwart for us, and his first 2+ years for you guys, we know how much of an impact he had
Yeah.
on your guys' whole line. So, how has that unit been blocking in the run game? And then I will tell you why it won't matter, because they're going to be dumbfounded by not knowing what to do because they won't have things to do in this game.
It's been solid. I think the Chargers' run game issues have not necessarily been one-on-ones left tackle blocking this guy, Zion blocking this guy. It's really been more of the tight ends, and that's why they saw their former third round pick Trey McKitty. They cut him, brought in Nick Van Nett, and things got a little bit better. So the run game hasn't been great, but it's really, to me, more so, one, no Corey Linsley. Two, Justin Herbert was hurt, so you kind of limit what you can do as a runner. Three, the tight ends being the biggest issue. And then four, they've been leaning so much into Austin Eckler, the runner. But if you just look at the numbers between him and Joshua Kelly, while Kelly isn't doing it on a ton of runs, there's enough attempts there. I think he's nearing, I would say, 100 on the year, but I could be wrong. It's very clear that Kelly is the better contact guy. He's the better explosive run rate guy. Heading into last week, he was fifth in the entire league in explosive run rate, and they just keep trying to lean into Eckler, the runner, and it's not working. So when you have a line that's like fine but not great, but your tight ends aren't blocking really well, and Corey Linsley is hurt, and Herbert's injury has taken away so many run plays, and then Eckler's no longer the runner that he has been and is not very good against after contact anymore, the whole run game has just been struggling. But like you said, we'll see how it goes. I think the struggle for the offensive line so far has more so been the in pass pro, especially with Corey Linsley out. I think Will Clapp is a fine backup center, but he's not Corey Linsley. And without him, things just are different. Corey Linsley, I think, allowed 9 pressures in 2 seasons for the Chargers his first 2 years. Like, that's something that we had not seen in forever. I mean, the last center that they had were like, oh, great, only 45 this year. And so Corey Linsley to only allow 9 in the 1 year was fantastic. So we'll see. It's really just been an issue with pass protection. So we'll see if that improves. I don't know how you guys are as a rush unit, but that has given the Chargers more fits in the running game.
Purely coincidental and fitting fashion for this week, a power surge took me offline.
You bolted up. Your internet just bolted up.
I think it knows what's about to happen this week. But so, getting back to where you were in the middle of explaining why it looks like this is a year where Kelly is having a more efficient year as a runner. Eck is, like you said, not quite the runner he used to be, still effective, but they probably need to redistribute snaps between the two. And the O-line is not necessarily the problem. It's everything around them. But
yeah,
if you had anything after that point.
Yeah, so as far as Kelly and Eckler is concerned, before last game, I don't know if things have changed. Kelly was the leader as a runner in yards per attempt, yards after contact per attempt, rushing yards over expected per attempt, explosive run rate, avoiding negative run rate, etc., like EPA per rush. Anything suggested Kelly was better. And even though it wasn't great, it was better than bad. Like, it was at least fine. I'll take the running game, honestly, could have used 3 yards in a cloud of dust over 1.5 yards in a cloud of dust. And that's kind of where they were at as a rushing unit. And it sounds lame, but that would help. That would help. And the Chargers just being a little bit better this past week, running the football made things so much better. It wasn't living in 2nd and 11 and 3rd and 9 or whatever. Like, they were like, okay, 3rd and 6. That's a bit more manageable with Aiden Hutchinson there and Trey Pipkins struggling. So yeah, anyway, the run game, the offensive line, I don't think has been the issue as much. It's more the tight ends and some other things, injuries as well. The pass protection has been more of the issue so far. No Corey Linsley, switching the guard spots, Trey Pipkins regressing tremendously, and then Rashawn Slater's ankle injury. Those have all contributed to things not being so great. And again, you take away some of your dimensions as a passing attack when Herbert can't go under center. So again, it's just everything kind of compounds on top of each other. It's easy to blame one thing or one person. It is not the case. Like, everything has multiple issues.
Right. Yeah. It kind of, like you said, it's easy to, fans always want what's the reason, what's the scapegoat, and you don't want to say, and it's not his fault, but Herbert's finger does limit you guys on so many on so many levels. It impacts what you guys, because we've already pointed to can't go under center, how that his inability to run the ball because of the finger limits your guys' rushing game. And then I think, kind of tying that into the pass game, you mentioned Trey Pipkins being not as effective as he was last year. But, Pipkins, I thought, his story is one of the great ones. Packers fans are like Chargers fans, where it's like, just trade all the 3rd round picks because they all suck. But Pipkins, he had a rough start to his career and turned himself into a very, very strong right tackle. I would argue like top 10, top 8 in the league, based on last year. But, he's one of those guys where if, in the case where Herbert's injured and he's in shotgun all the time, I think what the average fan doesn't understand is that, okay, oh, but it's shotgun, he's passing, he can get the ball out quick. But if the guy's always in shotgun, the defense is like, okay, he's gonna be there or like a yard or two back. And so we'll just aim for there. And for a guy like Pipkins, who's, he's a good pass protector, but his whole thing is using his run blocking to supplement his pass blocking. If you take, like you said, you take his run game effectiveness away, and then you give the defense a X marks the spot for where Herbert is going to be, that just compounds, that makes his, I'd say he's an above average to good pass protector when he's really on his game. And then it becomes like, like just hold on, don't hold, but hold on, Pip. Like, so, and then the other things I've noticed that I know Johnson had this kind of streak early in the year where he would be really good in pass protection at left guard. And then he would have, like the Dolphin game, it was like late in the game, he would just have the Dolphin, and I think the Titans game too, he would have like one or two just brain farts where you're like, whoa, like what happened on that play? Like the Dolphin game, it was like his controller got disconnected, and that was the one where I think Herbert threw it, he got called for grounding, but it was like he had no choice because someone was coming free on him. So how has the O-line, I know, and like you said, losing Lindsley is just, it's an incalculable loss because of all that, his 10 years of experience as a center, calling games for Rodgers, calling games with all different kinds of running mates on the O-line. How has the pass protection, moved from week one through now, after like we mentioned, the guards swapping sides and all of the different, Herbert's injury, how has it kind of evolved over the season?
Yeah, that's so Corey Linsley went down, but we missed him after the first few weeks. So it wasn't great though. Like Corey, this particular year was not as good as he was previously. I believe he allowed either as many pressures or pretty close to it in the 3 games that he played as he did the all like last season. So things were just a bit off with him as is. But the left side of the line has been more of the strength in pass protection. Obviously, Rashawn Slater, that helps even with the injury. Like he's your best player on line, period. So that has helped. And I think Zion Johnson has been better than the stats would indicate. I watched him against the Jets. They credited him with 6 pressures allowed. I didn't really see it. The one sack that he did allow was after like 3.5 seconds. And at some point, you just can't fault an offensive line. Like you pause at 2.5 seconds, he's stacking or whoever it is, like I think Solomon Thomas. Like he's arms extended, no problem.
You're blocking Quinnen Williams for a whole game, basically. You're
Sure.
gonna not win every rep.
Right. And I think that does, it's tough because D tackles are so good now. There are so many great defensive tackles and so many great nose tackles. Things are so difficult where that position is starting to become like the next edge rusher sort of thing in terms of importance for a team. I mean, Dexter Lawrence is like 5th in like every rushing category. He's a nose tackle. I mean, things are just different these days. So they've been better. The struggle has been Trey Pickens and Jamari Sawyer. And I really think that Zion had much better chemistry with Trey than Jamari did. Zion is also the superior athlete. If you look at just the athletic profile of the line, it's like every RAS is 9.2, whatever. Like, and Jamari is not that great. Like that is not his thing, and that's okay. He's fine, but he's not very athletic. And I just think there's instances of having to move to pick up someone who's looping around, pick up a different rusher, or just guys who are flat out faster. That he just can't quite get there. Like Zion can, some of these athletic guys could just make up for mental mistakes because they're fast enough. They're just athletic enough. It's not quite Jamari right now, and maybe it never really will be. So the right side has been a lot more difficult. The communication there is just way off and has not been great. It was okay last game, but against the Jets, it was just the Jets and the Chiefs in particular, that right side was caved in. It felt like every other play, and they could do whatever they wanted against them. So I don't know what you guys do in terms of creativity, but whoever your best rusher is, probably Rashawn Gary. I don't know if he lines up on the right side of the offensive line the most, but like that's going to be the big matchup. And I think everyone else will be okay, but Gary, I think, is going to do just fine against Trey and Jamari this week.
Yeah, they start the game off with Rashawn. He'll be over the right tackle. And then on the interior, sounds like that means that Kenny Clark will probably get a lot of reps over Jamari Sallier. So Barry's been experimenting with more stunts this season. There's no real, like, that's the thing with Barry is like, doesn't follow trends necessarily. He's kind of just like, uh, send up the flare. I'm calling cover four. That's like the only
Oh,
thing you
nice.
have to worry
Yeah,
about.
love it.
So, which I know is something you guys are used to too.
Oh,
But
yeah. Mhm.
um, I mean, yeah, just looking in terms of where Green Bay would have an potential advantage, like you said, it would be Rashawn, over right tackle and letting him just kind of go to work and stuff. But um, I know we're gonna bounce back to the run game a little bit, but the point I was making about your O line being like, where are they at, is because Barry runs. So Barry's preference is to run sub packages, run nickel, dime, penny, whatever. But on top of that, so to supplement the fact that he's light in the box, he likes to line his guys up wide. And like, so it goes back to like, you remember like 8 years ago when the Eagles were like, we're running the wide
Oh,
nine, it's
yeah.
big
Mhm.
fat and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. You look at some of the coaches tape of the Packers front, and it's like the fourth guy on the line of scrimmage isn't even in the shot at the snap of the
Oh, man.
ball. And it's like, so and it's been this topic of conversation because it's like, no, like we prefer to be, small because we want to be, but it's like, but they're playing 13. And I know that like this may not be a thing against the Chargers because, like you said, Tyler, tight end blocking, tight end play hasn't necessarily been a strength of the team this year. But
Right.
just know that if you guys are in anything from 11 or lighter, we are going to be in some kind of light, what package. So it'll be there for the Chargers line for the taking. And like you said, O line play, there's a lot of feeling out, familiarity, um, just gelling that needs to happen to get good O line play. And that's where the Packers defense has been a get pick you up, get right game for a lot of defenses, because it's like you have one guy for every, not every other, every third gap. And it's like, oh, so when we run duo or any kind of
Yeah.
combo block, it's like I'm just gonna stick my hand out because I'm just have to nudge him like 2 inches over onto
Yeah.
you, and I'm gonna go hunt the mic kind of thing and
Uh-huh.
stuff like that. So,
Wow.
um, it's funny because Staley and Packers fans is one of the guys that everyone's like, that guy, Chargers move on that guy, and I'm like, I think it'll be better just because he won't be buried. But I was like, but I mean, you're gonna be you might be surprised how similar their schemes are at the end of it. But he would be less on the insanity extreme that Barry plays at. But the Packers secondary is a little banged up.
Right.
Jair Alexander is question. He missed last week's game with a shoulder injury that he suffered against the Rams. I know you guys are pretty dinged up in the receiver room. How is Jordan Palmer looking going into this game?
Yeah, I don't believe he's going to play for a bit. So I think, and now I'm getting the games mixed up, but I believe this would either be the fourth or the third game has to miss because of going on short-term
Oh, okay,
IR.
okay, that's
So
right. Yeah.
so it's going to be, and even then, Brandon Staley said he's going to miss at least 4 games. We're going to, that at least is like the minimum, and then from there we'll see. So at this point, it's really just the Keenan Allen show, and if you got someone to cover Keenan Allen, you can stop the Chargers passing attack.
Well, Jair has been dealing with a bunch of stuff this season, and Packers fans are love to love to point the finger at whatever they think is wrong with their defense. But before he missed the games with the shoulder, he was dealing with a back injury, and
Ugh.
yeah, people were making comments about like, oh, like does he know the team sucks, so he's in trying? But I was like, you watch him play, like you watch him against the Vikings 3 weeks ago, and it's 3 games ago, and it's like anyone with back problems has been there. It's like he looks like a guy who is like, I am counting my steps. I am making sure my heel strike is in the right spot, because if this blade of grass gives out on me right now, I'm going to be a very unhappy person in 5 minutes. So
Sure.
he's been fighting through some stuff, but obviously getting him back this week would be pretty big to at least have a proven body to go against a Keenan,
Yeah.
someone at the level of Keenan Allen, who I think is one of the best 3 receivers in the game at this point in time. But otherwise, we have one Carrington Valentine and one Corey Ballantyne as our starting perimeter corners. And
Love
if
it.
you've never heard of them, I do not blame you. But I know that, a key piece that the Chargers got back this past game was Jalen Guyton, who I know Chargers fans have been, pounding the table for. Where is he? Why isn't he back? And Quentin Johnston got his first touchdown. So, um, and Detroit isn't the greatest defense, but they have been a relatively stout unit over the season. So, do you guys view that what their production was this past week as a potential springboard, or was it just kind of a matchups thing that you guys are looking at?
No, I think it was a definite springboard. So if you just look at like expected points added against the pass for the defense, I believe the Lions were 2 spots ahead of the Jets and right behind the Cowboys. So it's a pretty good unit against the pass in particular. And early on, the Chargers offense definitely got punched in the mouth. They did like, oh, okay, this defense is pretty good. And the Lions do have enough guys at each spot where they can be a pretty solid unit. Even with Chauncey Gardner-Johnson out for the year, they're still a pretty good unit. But it just felt like with Guyton returning, Justin Herbert has this thing, and there's only one reason Guyton is still on the roster. Herbert trusts him. Like Herbert just trusts him and loves him. Like you think of the best Herbert throws, it's probably to Jalen Guyton. I mean, Herbert's first ever touchdown throw was Jalen Guyton. The best throw that Daniel Jeremiah has ever seen was the one to the Giants for like just a huge launching it, between cover two. Like it was incredible. Everything Jalen Guyton he has a big trust and relationship with Herbert. And you saw this past week, there was a throw that Herbert had to make. I think it was his best throw of the game for the touchdown. That was to Guyton. He was like faking the block, then went up on a seam, and he just split two defenders with a throw that you don't throw if you don't trust that player. And Jalen Guyton, coming back off of a pretty rough ACL injury, is someone Herbert trusts. So that's been huge for them. Quentin Johnston getting a bit more involved is great. I wish he would have caught more passes, even though he drew 3 defensive pass interferences. You wish he just would have also come down with one of those. One in particular could have gone for 80. But it felt like even then, like Johnston, even though it wasn't like a ton of production, he started to get just more used to, I don't know, being involved in the game plan. And some fans have been so frustrated with him because he hasn't gotten the yards that Zay Flowers has had, Jordan Addison has had. But you feel bad in a sense because he's out there for, these games, yes, they're 60 minutes, but they're like 3.5 hours. He's out there for 3.5 hours and he gets one target. He's running wind sprints. Like he has to get into the game after a while. If you're doing this for months and you're getting a target or two, you're just not quite involved and checked in as much. I'm not saying that he's like lazy or checked out, but if you're not involved, your brain isn't really like, you can tell that when he started to get more involved in this game, it's like, yeah, I got to get really involved, man. Like I'm actually getting targeted now. Let's go. And there was a Herbert scramble to the right where Johnson knew he was scrambling, peeled off his guy and went to the left. And Herbert just threw a perfect pass, dangerous pass, but only Herbert and these guys can make it. And like Johnson was just locked in. He knew what to do, got it on the scramble. It was a great play by both of them. And so I think, yeah, it is a springboard moment. And if all things hold, you're about to get a very angry Keenan Allen, which I don't think I've ever seen. He's very passionate. He can get like frustrated, excited, happy, whatever. But he looked angry. Like he was sick of the team losing. He was sick of being behind. And, the Chargers didn't win, but Keenan Allen wasn't going to let the Chargers lose that day. He looked angry. Herbert looked angry. So I think that is something the Chargers can hold on to. They really don't have an identity. The whole team doesn't have a positive identity. But if you can just lean into, wait, timeout. I'm Herbert. You're Keenan Allen. We're 2 of the best at our positions. Let's just kick the crap out of the opposing defense and just have this mentality. That I think is a springboard that could be featured this week. We'll see. I don't know what the weather's going to be like, but I think that's something. I think the Chargers are turning a corner. Won't be 38 points. I doubt it, but I think they will.
Don't hold your breath on this. Like unless there's dumb turnovers or something like that. Like you said, all I'm hearing is that there's a team with an elite wide receiver one, with one returning from injury, one emerging from being a rookie, deep threats. The Packers and you guys have an underrated tight end, Gerald Everett, who is a physical run after the catch option. And Green Bay is supposed to cover all these guys with, especially if Jair misses the game, with a 7th round rookie cornerback on one side, an undrafted free agent corner on the other side, a guy in the nickel who was signed to be a special teams ace in Keyshawn Nixon. And I don't know what the hell we're doing at safety. Like we're playing, we continue to choose to play guys, that's okay. So like I know we're focusing mostly on the Chargers here, but
All
one of the
good.
things that the Packers I can't stand about what they're doing at certain positions. So it's like, okay, this is a year of discovery, a reset on the roster, find out who are the pieces that fit going forward, kind of thing. And then at safety, they're like, okay, we have okay, so Darnell Savage is on IR right now with a shin injury. He won't be
Mhm.
back for at least another 2 weeks, I think. But so, it was like, can he salvage his Green Bay career this season? Okay, he's on IR right now, was having a solid year. After him, the only guy who's not on this roster for special teams purposes is rookie Anthony Johnson Jr. from Iowa State. He started against the Rams, and granted, it was the Rams with a dresser and Mark Rippon's nephew as quarterback, but but he looked good, and it's one of those. Oh, he looked good against college quarterback playing in the NFL, but maybe let him play against an NFL quarterback, and then
Yeah.
he's not even in. We're playing Rudy Ford, who's had a nice year and a half at safety, but is really more of a special teams guy, and Simone Biles' husband. So, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like, and it's bit from a if you're looking at the Packers, one of the things that we've all been surprised by as Packers fans is no one has really taken just deep shot after deep shot on the Packers with the
Mm.
safety room in question. And especially now with our cornerback room, you traded Rasul Douglas to the Bills. Understandable roster management. He wasn't going to be on the next really good Packers team. So get what you can for him. And Jair is out. He might miss this week again. Eric Stokes is on IR. And like I said, you've got the hodgepodge of alphabet soup names for cornerbacks left on your roster.
Yeah.
And, you know, like I said, the Chargers might set career rushing records because of, Barry tries to like play light boxes to make sure the pass is covered. But then at the same time, who is guarding the deep pass against a team that, if Herbert had his way, would probably be winging it deep every other drive at least, kind of thing. So it'll be interesting to see how they match that up. But kind of dipping into that just a little bit, how have you guys liked the Kellen Moore experience so far?
It's been, I would say it's a mixed bag, but I think it's more positive than that. I think there's definitely an aspect of whoops, there goes Corey Linsley, there goes Mike Williams, there goes Josh Palmer. It's like, okay, well, there went plan A, B, and C. So we got to figure it out. And I think the Chargers have kind of struggled to figure that part out. I think they had a really good plan going into the year. Obviously, week one, everyone's healthy, toe to toe with the Dolphins. Offense looks great. We can run it, we can throw it, you name it. Then things just changed because guys got hurt. That Vikings game, everyone looked great. You had 150 yards and you had 215 yards. Like, yay, woohoo, we're a good offense. And then Mike Williams gets hurt and Corey Linsley's out. But no matter what, I think Kellen Moore does two things. I think he sets up plays very well. I think he sets up DBs very well. There are several instances in that Lions game where they have previously run screens. They've shown certain looks. DBs bite on assuming there's a screen. Suddenly there's a wide receiver running past them because, oops, yeah, we called the changeup. So that's been great. And I just think overall, Kellen Moore, for better or worse, he tries different things. And sometimes to the detriment of the Chargers because again, the Chargers don't have like an identity on offense just yet, other than Herbert good, but they're trying different things. You are not going to get the exact same thing that you saw from the Chargers tape last week or the previous week. You're going to get the changeup of that. You're going to try something different. So to his credit, him trying different things, I think, has been really solid for the Chargers. And I think any Chargers fan will tell you, or anyone who's watched Joe Lombardi's offense will tell you, like, that's refreshing. Their efficiencies, what they do overall, is about the same, but you can tell that this offense, once they really find like they kind of grow their tree of plays that works and understand when to call things, and they just understand each other, right? Herbert's got to learn another offense, Kellen Moore's got to learn Justin Herbert, etc. You can tell that once they have established themselves even more and they know where to go in each instance, they'll have such an inventory of different kinds of plays they can run and just things they can call back on to try to go at. I think that is where the Chargers are headed. I don't think it'll be 38 points a game, although you seem to think that the Packers will spot them a $150 or something. So we'll see if we can break the Dolphins record of 70 or whatever, or the second place record of 70. But no, I like it so far. I think that this past game, obviously, what have you done for me lately? 38 points with at some point during the game, they didn't have the wide receiver 1, 2, 3, their center, or their tight end 1, and tight end 2 was banged up in that game, and they put up 38. So you really can't ask for more than that. Like that's pretty good.
Nope. Yep. Making chicken salad on a chicken, you know what, and um, like you said, it's hard to create an offensive identity when you're starting to miss parts of the car that you're trying to drive across the finish line. So
Totally.
sounds like more is like you said, he's putting his imprint on the team and trying to steer the direction and get Herbert under his wing and stuff. So it sounds like the process is working out well. Moving on to the side that I know has brought the ire of Chargers fans.
Well, I got to go. See you later.
Yeah. How okay, we'll start with what spooks me this game. Packers O-line has had an up and down season, kind of like the Chargers. A lot of injury, a lot of Bakhtiari. We lost him after 1 week. Packers fans have been ruining that one for a lot. But at the end of the day, what it comes down to is he had the bad ACL tear. There was other cartilage and stuff that went with it. And then there was the decision of like, do I get another surgery at the time? And it's like, no, it might not need one. Oh, you ended up needing one. Such is life, kind of thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But along the way, what's also happened to is Zach Tom, who was their second best O lineman, Elton Jenkins, who was like 2A behind him, he got hurt. And with those two ailing, and then John Runyon Jr.'s play has fallen off of a cliff, and Josh Myers is, he's a serviceable center, but his problem is that he's always going to be compared to Creed Humphrey behind him. But I point to all those things, and now in Bakhtiari's place, we are starting a 7th-round second-year player, Rasheed Walker, at left tackle. I point to all those things because I have always been of the belief that pressure is the thing that makes or breaks you. And unfortunately, it has broken the Packers offense more often than not. Joey Bosa looks as healthy as he's been in a couple of years. Khalil Mack is still Khalil Mack in my book until proven otherwise, and Tuli Tulipuotu looks legit. How is this Chargers front coming together as we get to the halfway point of this season in your eyes?
Yeah, I feel bad for this unit because they had 2 amazing elite games against the Bears and the Jets, and then they followed up with a game against the Lions where they basically were no-shows. That was more schematic. Ben Johnson, the Lions did everything they could to make sure there was no pressure. But overall, those 3 edge rushers, especially now that they're healthy, they are very, very dangerous. I wish I could call them elite now, but again, I just saw what happened against the Lions.
If the Lions do have an elite O-line, though, so
right.
And like you said, you mix game plan with elite O-line play. There's not much you can scheme or whatever up in a game plan.
Yeah, you don't have Penei Sewell on your team. Like that is just not happening this week. So I think that what's been great for the Chargers in those 3 is that because you have those 3, at any one point, one of those guys will get it done. And I believe, I don't remember the exact number, but when those 3 guys are on the field, they have a sack every 4 plays when those 3 guys are on the field at the same time. It's a 25% sack rate, which is ridiculous. I don't know what it was after the Lions game, but basically if they're on the field, you've got 4 plays and you're getting a sack from one of those guys. It's incredible. So we'll see what they do there. What you guys would prefer to try to do this game is, I don't know if you guys will love this. I don't know if it's a good idea or bad idea. You tell me. You got to find a way to just run the football at the Chargers, which is strange because their run defense has been good. But if you're trying to alleviate any kind of pressure in pass protection in terms of like, okay, Josh Myers needs some help or one of your guards needs help, the Chargers are basically refusing to play Morgan Fox on early downs when they believe the teams are going to run it. Morgan Fox is, I think, top 10 in productivity, in win rate, in everything. And they don't play him because they don't believe he can play the run, which I disagree with, but that's how they feel. So you guys need to at least present the challenge of the Chargers having to stop the run. And I think that will alleviate some pressure on you guys. But otherwise, like Tuli, man, they can't pronounce his name right, but they're starting to because they have to keep saying it. He's phenomenal. And I don't remember the last time a day 2 pick had really just walked in and looked like the future for the team.
Because Uchenna Nwosu, it took him till the end of his rookie deal to kind of figure it out.
Yeah, and he was always kind of, I think Tuli, not lucked out, but he sort of lucked out that Joey got hurt, so he got to be in with the starters pretty
Right.
early, and by the second game. But yeah, Uchenna Nwosu, it was a good career, and it's some guys, of course, you want to be like amazing right away, fine, but it took him a bit. But he was always the third guy behind Ingram and Bosa, so he never really had to be. But when he finally was, he developed, he looked solid, went to Seattle, great. Truly, it's like after the third game, you're like, yeah, we found our edge of the future. Like, here's the edge for the next 10 years. Like, good, we're good. If we want to keep paying him, fine. He was just murdering guys and just looking like an elite edge rusher at times, not all the time. He's still learning, and he was 20. Like, there was so much room to grow, still learning. He's in a great spot. Giff Smith is a great position coach. Joey Khalil, great coaches for him, like as like player coaches. And then truly it's something about his eyes. You can tell that like football is his thing. Like that is what he does. I am a football player. I am serious about this. I let down my culture and my team when I lose. Like if I don't do this, I let down like everybody. And you can tell for Tuli, it's just so serious. So they'll give you guys fits for sure. I think they're probably looking at the stats from the Lions game and wanting to have a better game. But it should be an even match unless Khalil Mack has like an agenda against your team, in which case he will go off. So anti-Bears, anti-Raiders, absolutely. I don't know if the Packers is anything, but should be fine.
But yeah, no, it's yeah. So it's funny you mentioned the run game because the run game and the O-line were supposed to be the backbones of this offense. And like you said, that's been the problem for the Packers this season is that they haven't had an identity on offense because their O-line has been kind of in shuffles, especially since the Bakhtiari injury and all the injuries, the other like dinged up guys they've had along the way. And then Aaron Jones, pulling his hamstring in the first game of the season. A.J. Dillon got off to a slow start. So, the run game that was supposed to be something that, Jordan Love and the young offensive weapons could lean on, that kind of got taken away from him before it started. And then add in the fact, too, that Christian Watson, he missed the first 3 games, and Romeo Dobbs was limited in the first 3 games because of hamstring injuries. It just, it's not the same as what the Chargers are dealing with because the Chargers have guys that are playing out, but it's in the similar vein of things where it's like you have these expectations of, what you're supposed to be able to rely on, and it's not there for reasons X, Y, and Z. Unfortunately for the Packers, we don't have a Keenan Allen. Our Keenan Allen plays for the Raiders now. So, but just in terms of the pass defense, I know Mike Davis it sounds like he'll probably be back this week because he was dealing with, he ate something bad or something like that. I saw the report where it was like, he thought he was feeling better Saturday. And then Sunday, it was like, I'm going to try to play. No, I'm not. I will meet you guys in the locker room kind of thing. So how is he and the rest of the Chargers secondary looking as we try to wrap this one up today?
Yeah, hopefully he's back. But overall, this pass defense has been a train wreck. It has been pretty bad, and surprisingly so. I just think that, unfortunately, the J.C. Jackson situation had not worked, and even he sent him back to New England, and he's benched in New England.
Do a whole show on that.
Yeah, that's a whole thing. That's a whole movie. It's gonna be a 30 for 30 one day or something. But no, I know fans love Asante Samuel Jr., but if I'm not mistaken, he either like leads the league in yards allowed or he's top 3. Michael Davis is a completely different player than he was last year. But at the same time, the Chargers have not, and Brandon Staley, it's his scheme. You have these guys in the locker room after the Chiefs game going, no, we didn't do that. Like, we didn't, Staley will say one thing at the podium and the players will say, no, that's not what we did. And it's just, there's this disconnect between what the players are either comfortable with or what they want to do. They've tried to simplify things, and I think that might help. I say that having watched Ben Johnson and the Lions shred the bejesus out of the Chargers. I mean, it was really bad. I expect that whatever, if you're betting on something, whatever your receiver, whatever Reed's, numbers are, bet the over. Whatever Love's completion percentages, bet the over. Like whatever Luke Musgraves is set at, bet the over. I mean, because they can't stop anyone. And unfortunately, the Chargers cycled away from, I know you're asking more about like the secondary, but they got rid of Kaiser White. They moved on from him to try to get Kenneth Murray snaps, and they had Drew Tranquil. Fine. Then they get rid of Drew Tranquil to bring in Eric Kendricks. Murray and Kendricks have improved the run defense quite a bit. They are not pass coverage guys. They are not pass coverage guys. And again, Ben Johnson, the Lions went, yeah, we recognize that. And they had almost 300 yards after the catch or contact because they knew those linebackers could not hang with them. And so it's been rough. Like the Chargers pass coverage has been as bad as I can possibly remember it. And they've given up, I think, of like the 7 games where someone's allowed more than 475 yards this season. The Chargers have 3 of them. So it's just been really bad, man.
Well, we're gonna put a pin on it because I don't want to hold you into your next engagement. But what it's sounding like between the two of us talking is that we are just gonna be holding on to our chairs when either of our defense is on the field because we have minimal to no faith in them. But Tyler, I just want to say before you have to get on out of here, thank you so much for coming on with us. I wish we could have you on longer, but it's always great to get to talk football with you. Before Tyler goes, please give him a follow at Tyler J. Schoon, SCHOON on Twitter. Follow Guilty as Charged at GAC Podcast 17. You can follow those guys and get like I said, it's not just Chargers stuff, it's Chargers centric stuff, but it's a lot of good football insight. Arjun does a lot of great advanced stats. He has his own schematics and he puts together great presentations with his advanced stats. Steven, Alex, and Tyler, they put together a great set of shows for the week. So Tyler, just want to say again, thank you so much for joining us. Hope to have you on again in the future, sometime sooner than later. But thank you so much for coming on. And hey, like you said, we will just have fun with this game this weekend.
Yeah, it'll be a blast. I hope you lose. Sorry, but hope you lose.
You guys need wins. You guys need the wins more than we do at this point.
Yeah, right. No, I need a win, man. Like I need something to happen this week. It really is something. I'm about to record on the Chargers channel in 3 minutes, and it's like, okay, time to record after a loss. And it's just a fart in an elevator every time you have to go record after a loss. It's just nobody likes it. So yeah,
especially when it's the same thing you're recapping every time, right? It's like, why did we lose? The offense scored, the defense sucked, kind of thing and stuff. So
So I mean, Steven and I are changing the show today because it's like, why would you just say the same thing? So we're changing it up just a bit. Anyway, thank you for having me on. Sooner than 4 years is just fine, but if you don't have me again for another 4 years, that's fine. We'll see what's changed since then.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tyler. Take care.
No problem, man. Take care.
So yeah, we'll go a little bit longer just because power outage distorted what we had. But yeah, just like Tyler was kind of pointing into, I kind of made the joke during when I had Tyler on, but Staley has been pointed at as a guy that if he gets fired, would he be a guy that the Packers would want to bring in? I previously said no because I thought that Chargers fans were happy with him as coach. He has this aggressive attitude in terms of going for it on 4th down when his team is his offense is on the field. But in all honesty, a lot of the things that we've seen, he's not calling defense the way he did, when he had that really good season as the Rams coordinator in 2020. And I don't know if things change if he goes back to being just the coordinator at this point. But it's going to be a lot of the same things. It's a lot of, as what Barry, not necessarily the wide splits on the line of scrimmage, but a lot of light boxes, the want to play sub packages, and loose coverage on the back end of the defense. So we'll see how that stacks up between Green Bay and the Chargers. But Joe and I have been saying it for a couple weeks that it's sort of fool's gold in terms of it's fool's gold in terms of who the Packers have played and why they've got a low points per game allowed on defense. And the fact of the matter is that they haven't played an offense worth a damn. Even the Steelers this past week, and that's what's really, really bad about what they allowed the Steelers to do on offense. They hit their season average in rushing with time to spare in the first half of that game on Sunday. So, the Chargers, they're kind of in the same boat where they're not an elite rushing offense, not even necessarily a very good rushing offense, but after what the Steelers did, and as Tyler noted, that the Chargers probably want to get their run game going to supplement their passing game, especially with some of their offensive weaponry in question a bit. You really counting on Barry to make the proper adjustments? I don't. He's going to look across the field and see Justin Herbert, and he's going to say, nah, like, I'm going to play 5 yards even further off. So, not a lot to be excited about. The It's going to be like, people were saying during the Pittsburgh game, Green Bay's offense is going to have to score, and the past couple of weeks should give you some confidence into um, the upswing in the Packers offense. Jordan Love, he put together two pretty good games. I know the final counting stats aren't going to support that, but he was making many, many more good to wow plays with fewer bad throws in between it. And that's what you want to see from him at this point in the season. And it's going to be on that. And can Green Bay get their run game going against I don't want to say as questionable, because I don't think anybody's run defense is as questionable as Green Bay's, but can they get their run game going to take pressure off of their O-line and off of Love? Because as Tyler noted, that three-man pass rush between Bosa, Mack, Tulipo, and then you add in either like a Sebastian Joseph Day or Morgan Fox, whichever one is on the field at the time. And the Chargers have four guys who can get to the quarterback basically at will, and especially against the interior of this O-line, which, Jenkins has looked better. Myers has been good in pass pro, more when he's a helper than when he's one-on-one on a guy, but he's been solid. But attacking Runyon, attacking Walker, the Chargers are going to be able to do that this week. So it's going to be on, moving, whether it's moving the pocket, getting the ball out quicker, or getting the run game going. This Packers offense is going to have to pull its weight in more ways than one. I'm going to recap the special teams, the Chargers special teams. They finally have found a kicker for themselves. It's been a long haul since the days of like Nate Kading, just guys who couldn't answer the bell when called upon for the Chargers. Cameron Dicker the kicker, as they call. He has been a breath of fresh air for the Chargers and has been a super reliable kicker. I believe his only miss this season is from like 55 or something like that. The Chargers do bring in old friend J.K. Scott, as Tyler mentioned, the one free agent that Green Bay free agent that the Chargers brought in. He has been having a solid season. The weather forecast right now is for a high of 45, low of 33, with not much wind or a chance of snow. So it's getting cooler, and as Packers fans remember, that's where Scott would start to struggle. So it's time to see, is he just kind of benefiting from kicking in, warm LA and a dome a lot, or will he have figured out some of his punting? And on top of that, will the Chargers have to punt much on Sunday? And the kicker, funny, the kicker for the Packers coverage teams this week is rookie Darius Davis. So he already is a friend to the Packers because he returned a punt for a touchdown against the Jets, which basically proved to be enough points for the Chargers in that game. But, Green Bay's coverage units, they haven't been great the past month. And Davis is the kind of explosive athlete who can take one to the house at any moment. So Sachi's units, they're going to have to be on their P's and Q's this week to make sure that all their bases are covered, make sure that they stay they keep their lane integrity on their coverage. That's basically what happens with the Jets on his big punt return, is that he pushed to his right. The Jets collapsed down from Darius's left, and Darius just went out the back door and up the sideline, and that was all she wrote. So Green Bay is going to have to stay disciplined. A word that I don't know what part of this Packers roster has been in a long time, but it's going to be a tough one for the Packers. And as much as the Chargers have some holes, Tyler pointed out some question marks on their O-line, with the right side of the Chargers O-line being a question. Green Bay has to stop the run first. And I know Tyler tried to concede, some points on that where it's like, okay, the Chargers run game hasn't been great. Like I said, the Steelers offense as a whole isn't great. And they rushed for their season total with, 5 and change to go in the first half on Sunday. Eckler, Josh Kelly, Isaiah Spiller, those are all guys who could be in line to have career days against this Packers defense, especially if Quay Walker is out again this week. But again, I want to say thank you to Tyler, guilty as charged, for coming on and doing the crossover. As I mentioned before Tyler signed off, please give Tyler a follow at Tyler J Schoon, SCHOON, and follow Guilty as Charged. Like I said, they have a lot of good content. I know it's going to be Chargers centric, but they have a great crew, great advanced stats that Arjun is making. He makes plot charts every week, and it's really, because he puts the whole league on there, whether it's by team or by player. He represents every key player from every team, so it's good to kind of see where the Packers match up in some of the advanced stats that he puts out there. So Guilty as Charged will repost, so at GAC Podcast 17. Please check out their content. They're putting out great work. They have their crossovers with the Chargers themselves. They're featured by the Chargers Twitter and social media accounts. So give them a follow. They're a good insight, not just for this week when we're playing the Chargers, but just as a whole, to get a little more football insight from a totally different point of view. But that's going to do it for this opponent preview, a special crossover episode with Tyler of Guilty as Charged. Please give the podcast a follow on your favorite social media apps. Give us a like and a subscribe. Leave comments as well. And follow our Twitter handles at Kawano Mike. Iowa Joe is not here today, but at Iowa_Joe86. The podcast is at Ohana_Packers. Check the website, ohanapackers.org. We've got our articles going up there. The streams of the podcast are going up there. Please just support us, give us some views. We have great articles that are going up all the time. And follow the show. Get a different perspective on Packers, how the Packers are doing. But Packers are going into the 10th game of the season and back in the friendly confines of Lambeau with the Chargers coming in from LA. So we'll get to see how they match up against, like we said, they've spent a month playing some middling to lower tier offenses. The one decent offense they played was lighting them up until Kirk Cousins' Achilles decided, that's enough, and wove the white flag for the Packers. But this Chargers offense is they're going to have nitro, and as Tyler said, they're a unit that's looking for blood after disappointing loss last week, and Packers are the next game on the docket. So, like I said, I don't have many hopes for this Packers defense to do much of anything against the Chargers. They just, even with Mike Williams and Josh Palmer out, I think they have too many ways to attack the Packers in the areas that they're weak in. So putting it on Jordan, let's see what he can do if he can continue to ascend for a third week in a row. But on to week 11, give it a go, Pack Go, and Aloha.